Welcome, everybody. It is me. It is the Cyber Warrior. This is Cyber Warrior Studios. And I know you're all here for another amazing episode of Security Happy Hour. And I got an amazing guest playing. We got a lot to talk about, a lot to cover. And it's actually one of my favorite topics. And it goes based off of a lot of the content I do, anyways. So I'm here for it. So, with that being said, if you give me about 10 seconds, I promise we'll be right back. And we're back. See, 10 seconds, we're back. That's all it takes. With me this evening, I have the one and only Dawn Butler. Dawn, how are you doing?
I am good and I'm excited for this happy hour. I don't have any libations though. I wasn't ready. I just got
I mean, look, we got I mean, if you want to grab something, but but for everybody out there, yes, it is a happy hour. So if you want to drink, have a drink, whatever the case may be, that is how this show goes. Everything is off the cuff. But I do always start with one question: how you got into cybersecurity.
ah
Always my first one. It could be an TLDR. It could be long or as short as you want it. How'd you get into the industry, Dawn?
all right. So that is I don't do TLDRs really well. Um, but I'll say it was a little by chance, but also on purpose. So I entered technology. So I've spent about a half of my career as a IT person, information technology, and then the other half was cyber. So the first half was software engineering, database administration, applications, production support stuff. And as the production support manager, I was the owner of, let's say, like 6 or 7 applications and everything that had to do with them: databases, software, technology controls, everything, audit time, anything that had to do with those applications and keeping them safe, secure, accessible, the triad, basically, right? CIAA. That was my job. But at the time, I didn't really know much about. uh, We before Derek and I started, we were talking about our age. So I have watched technology develop and become what it is, right? When I left university, Windows had just gone GUI, user interface.
Hey, look,
Before,
that was my first Windows
yes,
operating system. Well,
right?
Windows
So it
operating.
was
I came up with
DOS.
it too. I get
Yeah.
it.
So cybersecurity as it is today, sort of, it wasn't called that. So in any
Mm,
case, as the production support manager and owner of all these apps, I was the implementer of the technology controls. I was the person who was making sure that all the entitlements were logged and reviewed and people had the right access and all the different aspects to make that secure. Third party things, vendor management, all of those things, making sure when you're accessing the database, right, as a production person in a production database, if you're making changes, all that's getting logged, all that's getting justified, just in time access, all those things. And I burnt out.
I believe it. I
It was
believe
my
it.
first burnout. I burnt out twice, everybody. This is my first burnout. I'm talking 12, 14-hour days every day, weekends. And then I had the heart to get my master's in the middle of that, all of that. Right?
Well, that didn't help your burnout. Let's be fair. Let's just add more onto it, and we'll see what happens.
I know. But at the time, I didn't know that I was burnt out. It wasn't until it was all over. And it just really started to manifest in my body physically. So, a lot of things about human nature we don't recognize until after.
True.
Right?
True.
So it wasn't until I look back, I'm like, I burned out, right? Like exhausted. And so as a result of some external things that happened, the burnout, some things at work with my boss, I started looking for another job. And one of the things that I would say to myself was like, I don't want to be the person implementing the controls anymore because I always felt like I was catching up. Like it was just a
That's all we're ever doing. Let's be fair.
constant catch up because where I sat in the organization in terms of the applications I supported, they were revenue generating, customer facing apps, right?
Mm.
And I was saying to someone the other day how when you're in that position, you sort of have a competition for priority.
Yeah,
It's always going
yeah,
to be revenue generation stuff first, and your technology stuff that comes after.
yeah,
It's important, but customer generation. And I also worked at a big bank, so anything regulatory and audit was always priority,
and I
right?
figure IT and cyber wasn't really there. They had no audits behind the banking industry when this stuff first came.
Not like they do now. Yeah, not like they do. But it was beginning. It was starting. So
Do the
this
blinky
was
lights blink, and are you logging? Not what are you logging, not where are you logging from.
yeah.
Does it
No, no,
work?
not to the level it
Give me
is
a buzz.
today. Yeah, but 9/11 had already happened, so the Patriot Act, I think SOX, that
Yeah,
stuff was in place. In any case, I was just like, "Look, I don't wanna be the implementer of the technology controls anymore. I'm tired of being the red person on the board. On the reports, my name will be there in red, like, she's behind, and it wasn't my fault, I'm, like, juggling these balls, right?" And I said, "I wanna be the person that sets the policy. I wanna
yeah,
be a part the part of people that hand it down to the folks
right.
to implement." And that's what I went looking for. And I ended up as a business analyst in identity and access, specifically doing segregation of duties, like program management.
So it was almost like the original. I mean, there's still business analyst jobs out there, but given that context, it's almost like the original GRC. Like before GRC was GRC,
Maybe.
it's kind of like an equivalent and I could be wrong. There's usually GRC folks if they're here right now,
Mhm.
that can chime in. But I mean, it kind of sounds like that, where it's like, hey, due to this regulation, due to this policy, due to X, Y, and Z, we need to implement this and let them go forth and conquer.
GRC well also didn't wasn't called that back then,
Yeah,
right? So we did a combination of everything.
yeah,
The
yeah,
governance, the compliance. But in the business analyst role, I was basically since we were building the segregation of duties program, so it was new that was being built. This was again a while back.
right.
I was functioning a little bit as a project manager, but doing like requirements gathering and getting people together. And I was really working on at the time an audit finding.
Ah,
So that was pushing the creation of this program. So, it was called business analyst, but it was really a project manager.
so
So,
with
yeah.
that, and getting in that way, like I came up through IT. We have people that get into cybersecurity from all different walks of life, right?
Yes, for sure.
I've had Alyssa Miller on this show. She got in she was a barista and just knew how to sell herself
Yes.
and was
Yep.
very good at what she does and is very good at what she does.
Mhm.
Ryan Rosado has been growing, Philip Wiley, like all these people. I've had tons of people on this show. And when I think about it, like no two paths are ever the same.
No.
But what I have
No.
found is and where the burnout especially the burnout comes from is we understand those that really want to get in and break in and like this is really what they realize it's going to be a full-time job. It's going to be a full-time lifestyle almost for a
Mhm.
while. Um, between your job once you get one, if you're going to school, right? Let's just
Yeah.
say you're going for a degree or certification or boot camps or
Yep.
something, whatever. That and then also the outside learning on top of that, so you're doing even more. And for now we're looking at people do content like technical videos and
Yes.
things like that.
Exactly.
So you're constantly going and grinding, and you're burning the candle at both ends, never giving yourself a break, never stepping away. That it's inevitable.
Mhm.
And, like, I talk to a lot of people that are like, "Oh, I love this," and I was one of them. Like, I love this, I love hacking, I love breaking into things, I like the labs, I like the learning, I like all this other stuff. And then once I got into a full-time job doing it,
Yeah.
outside of the military, and then started creating content doing it, I realized I can't do this. I I I can't,
It's a
which is
lot.
why and I'd love your opinion on this, but it's why things like the CISP. So my CISP recently decided, hey, we're not going to let you renew because you don't have the
Mm.
CPEs.
Okay.
That bothers me because I work full time in this industry.
Oh, I understand what you're saying. I never
So
thought of it
like
like that.
I like this is it's not
Mm.
like I'm sitting there
Yeah.
not learning and growing. Like I
Right.
legitimately I am a practice manager. I have to keep up
Yeah.
with all this
Yeah.
stuff. But my job doesn't count. You have to go out there like I can't tell you every art like
Huh.
why are we responsible for being like, "Oh yeah, I went to this webinar. I did this, I read this
Mm.
article. I did da da da." Da." And so I've had people tell me like, "Oh, you can use your show." No, you can't.
You can't, what is it, like
You can
type B
use the
credits or something? You only get so
you
many of
have
those.
the only thing that counts is the research up to the show.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
And I'm like, I I I message people, say, "Hey, come on," and we discuss the topic at hand. Like,
If you
I
were
don't know
doing
what
a
you want
more
from me.
technical show,
I
like
walk away from technology after I'm done my
I
workday
know.
anymore. Like, put the phone down, put the computer down.
Yes,
Any
yes.
research, anything I need to do is done during the workday.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what's your
I
take on
gotcha.
that on, like, how do you think that's affected the burnout of people where it's like you even after work, in order to maintain certifications, you gotta do webinars, you gotta do conferences, you gotta do everything
Yeah.
just to maintain your standing within the
Mhm.
industry and what people feel.
I don't even know where to start with that, Derek. I have so many thoughts. The first one that comes to mind is if we examine it really well, and I'm getting this sort of like I call it a good trouble spirit these days. Like I'm seeing things like, oh, this is really what it's about, and it's wrong. you know, it's a money generator.
It
It's
is, and
capital.
I love that you said that because, like, about about that wallet, who also has been on this show, he's in IT, for those that don't
Uh-huh.
know. He said, "You gotta pay the dues to maintain the thing,"
Yes, I
which
tell people that all the time.
look, if you're working for an organization with any cybersecurity certification and you're doing a cyber job or even an IT job, 9 times out of 10, they'll pay those dues for you.
Yes, yes,
Not always, but
not
9
always.
times out of 10.
No.
So, getting things paid for has never really been an issue. I mean, it did come up recently, but within the past 2 years for me, but, um, not necessarily. It was for me, it was, "Hey, I'm gonna renew this,"
Mhm.
because the CISP, their dues are, like, really cheap. It's like 30 bucks
Yeah,
or
it's
something
not
like that.
yeah.
So I'm like,
Uh-huh.
"Whatever." But they're like, "Hey, we're not gonna take your dues because you don't have the CPEs for it."
Yeah, you need what, 100 I think we need 120
120
or
in 3
something
years.
for 3 years. But what I mean by the capital is not just the maintenance fee, right? Because, like you said, it's not high.
No,
Um,
for some of
but
sands is
all of
high, but let's not get it twisted. For my
some
sand
of them
search, that's
are.
like $1,500.
Yeah, I only have the CISP, I don't have anything else, and I do
Yeah,
that because I understand the cost, and
yeah,
it's not just monetary, and I tell people that all the time. When you're thinking of a cert, don't just go getting certs, you have to maintain them, unless you don't
yep,
plan to, but then what is the point of investing in the first place? Okay?
exactly.
So, you're gonna get all these certifications, at least make sure they cross each other so that you can use the CPEs, in each one, but you're talking time investment,
Mhm.
and time costs money.
Well,
Right?
people don't realize that.
Yeah.
Because I wanna get into it on this show, like, what people don't realize, and especially when it comes to your mental health and stuff like that, everybody equates things to money. Alright, that's fine.
Mhm.
What's the value of your time? If you were to get paid hourly,
Yeah.
what's your worth?
So it comes down to, in my opinion, Derek, and this is when I talk to people who want to get into cyber and they say, "Oh, I want to get into cybersecurity," and I said, "Well, okay, well, what area are you interested in?" And they don't know. And I mean, I get it; it's big. Okay, it's a lot.
Right.
Always start with the question, "Well, what do you like to do?" Because I've learned that it's more than just the money. If it needs to be something that I enjoy, right? So when I'm done with work, I'm interested in studying that. I'm interested in learning that, right? So it becomes more than just about my job or my career, but it's something that I just find fulfilling for myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then the value is me. And so I also always say to people, when you go into the certs and the studying, do it for the learning.
Yeah.
right? Because that is invaluable.
Well, and that's what I've told people is like, I don't care what certifications you have. I care more so about what you learned
Yeah.
and your progress towards that
Yes,
certification.
exactly,
Because
exactly.
being in the
Sometimes you
military
don't
with
pass the test because you're not a good test taker.
there's a lot of people like that. And
Oh.
like being in the military with 8570, there's so many certifications that
Mm.
are mandatory and
Oh,
mandated
okay,
to
okay.
people. Like in order to work this job, you have to have this certification. And so it ruined, and actually this was the downfall of CompTIA. It really was.
Mm.
Because what I found out is there were certain boot camps with certain voucher codes where they would teach the test. So
Oh.
so what would happen is you'd go
Mm.
through, learn just what you needed for the test, go take the test, and if you were able to pass off that voucher code, you were good. But if you took that same course with a different voucher code, you got a different test.
Are you serious?
Mhm.
What?
I seen it firsthand. I know people that walked into the same,
So
and I
we're
was
back to
like,
the question, right? I think there's always this capital element going on, right? So even with the continuing education credits, right? We have to attend webinars, we have to attend probably conferences. There's money associated there for those companies. You know what I mean? Whether a company comes to like ISC2 and does one of the think tanks or whatever, right? They're sponsoring it. Well, they're trying to get their product
right.
bought, right? And
Yeah.
so whenever you do the ISC2 thing, you have to do the little acknowledgement. Hey, acknowledge that your information is going to go to these people. They might reach out to you. There's always this capitalistic element there, right?
Oh,
So it's
always.
not always direct, but it's there.
Well,
Um,
and I've always had an issue with that because for cybersecurity, especially when it comes to like cybersecurity certifications and things like that, because the original inception of a lot of these things is from cybersecurity people, and they understand, what data
yeah.
privacy is and all these things are. But even when you look at offensive security, when that is their whole premise, these people get greedy. That like really that's what it comes down to.
Mhm.
And I'm all look, I am one of those people. I don't care what anybody says. I am all for capitalism. You build your business, you own your business, you earn your
Yeah,
business,
I'm not.
make your money, make your bag, go for it.
Yeah.
But when you start changing your model because you're like, you know what, I'm not making enough. I want to make more, but you're not giving any added value. There's no other added
Yeah.
value to
That
it.
happens a lot,
You're
right?
literally just sitting there in this and then but the problem is what they're changing is we're going to sell your privacy now.
Oh,
So
definitely. Oh,
it's
definitely.
it's
Yes.
one thing when in social media we know we're the product, or at least
Yeah.
you should.
Yeah.
If it's
Yeah.
free, you're the product.
Yes, yes.
But in cybersecurity, when you're getting certifications and things like that, I'm not the product you are. I'm literally
Mhm.
paying my money
Yeah,
to take
yeah.
your certification,
Yeah.
to maintain your certification. Why are you selling my data? Because I know that's what you're doing. You have partners that there's money changing hands somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
You're selling my information.
There are a lot of people that are well, not a lot. I've seen a few people get a little disillusioned with the whole thing. I'm not there yet, I guess. I I for me personally, I haven't seen the certification do anything different for me. I keep it up
It
because
gets
I'm
you in the
interested.
door.
Yeah.
It gets you in the door, and that's what a lot. And this goes back though to the original conversation of
Mhm.
going to classes in boot camps for the knowledge versus the certification.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
again, more part of the certification, but
yeah,
it gets you in the door because you can't speak to it. And if
yeah.
you can't answer questions about it, then
Mhm.
that it's a paper cert. It means absolutely nothing to me.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I knew
That's
people in the
true.
military that got their A plus and their security plus, and you go ask them what port 443 is or what RAM is, and they can't answer the question.
Mm, mhm.
So I know this happens. I literally went through and got SANS certifications with people that were book smart and can study the books, knew them word for word. But when
Gotcha,
you ask them a
gotcha.
question, they
Mhm.
were like,
Wait, Derek, did I lose you? Can you hear me?
"Yeah, I hear you. You're
Okay,
good."
you're back. Okay, yeah, okay.
What was I out? It's
No, we had a
fine.
brief blip. It was just very
Okay.
strange. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, so I go back to I've going back to the burnout thing, right? And all the learning. I've been pondering like because I burnt out twice, right? I burnt
Mhm.
out the first time. I say it was physically, because my body started manifesting symptoms.
Yes.
The second time I burnt out, I was very unsuspected, but it was more of a, I like to say emotional or mental burnout.
I'm actually surprised you hit physical burnout before you hit mental. It's usually mental that comes first.
Um, Maybe because I was
Usually.
younger. I don't know. It
I
just was
mean,
it manifested differently. It really
yeah.
did. So the second time might have been, eventually my body did start to whatever, but I had to by the time the mental emotional thing had happened, I had developed a pretty decent physical routine, right? So I understood, like, I was listening to my body more. So
Yeah.
like I have tendonitis in my thumbs from work. And so when that starts to flare up, you're overworking. Chill. You know what I mean? And so I learned that. But what happened with the which is why I think it's important for people to understand when we're talking imposter syndrome, I feel like there's
When you
an
have imposter syndrome, that is the easiest way to go to burnout.
yeah, and so it can happen, I think, in two ways. There is an internal element to it, and I think imposter syndrome, like, everyone wants to reject this imposter syndrome, and, "No, I don't have it." I think you sorta you can have it, but we can call it, like, just being new, right? You're new to something, it's uncertain, I don't know for sure if I'm, you know.
Everybody from when they first break in till even veterans in the
Oh,
industry have suffered and
definitely, you will
admitted to
always
having
have,
imposter syndrome.
yes. Every time you get a new something, right? You're in a new position, you're gonna feel that uncertainty. I like to call it uncertainty, you know.
Yes.
Um, the second way that you can feel an imposter is by the environment that you're in,
Yeah,
right? And
it
I love
well
that you focus on belonging, Derek.
I do, very much so,
Uh-huh.
but when it comes to imposter syndrome, it depends on how you wanna see the world, right? And how you
Okay.
wanna see your surroundings. So, a lot of people talk about being the smartest person in the room or the dumbest person in the room. To be fair, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
I was thinking the same thing.
But how you approach that should be different.
Mhm.
So, how and now I've had different mindsets over the years, but generally speaking, I always tell people I'm the best at what I do. Every room I walk into, I'm the best there. But it's not because I'm legitimately the best. It's because I have an open mind and I'm willing to learn
Mm.
from everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas everybody there may not be willing to
Not
learn from
always
me.
like that, yeah.
And so it allows me to be the best in the room because I'm gonna learn from everything you tell
You're gonna
me,
take it all in. Yeah.
but you're gonna sit there and you're gonna think something
Stuck.
I say is dumb as shit and not pay attention.
Yeah.
That's on
No
you.
growth.
And
Yeah.
so that is why anything I ever do, I say, and I don't say I'm the best. Like I hate the term expert. I absolutely despise, especially in cybersecurity. Don't ever tell me you're a cybersecurity expert because I'm gonna walk away
It's
from
so
you.
impossible, like, there's way too much.
Because
You
to tell
cannot
me
know
you're a
everything.
cybersecurity expert means you don't know what cybersecurity is. And me and one my old co-host Eric Bellardo used to have this conversation all the time with
Uh,
people when it comes to cybersecurity, and people would be like, and you brought it up earlier, right? I want to break into cybersecurity. Okay, what do you want to do? Oh, I don't know. Well, that doesn't help. I can't guide you
I
from there. I need
cannot
you to at
guide you
least put
from
in the
nothing.
legwork
Yeah,
and do some research. So
yeah.
when people tell me they're a cybersecurity expert, I'm like, I'm gonna walk away from you
Virtually impossible.
because
Yeah.
unless unless you have like 190 IQ and can literally flip through the pages of a book and learn everything in there and learn by osmosis and just take in everything online, no,
But even
no.
then, can you do anything with it all? Right?
If you
So,
can't talk to people, what good are you?
can you
Like,
apply all that knowledge at one yeah, I don't know. I mean, if taking it in is one thing, but then applying it and being savvy and all of that is another thing. But
mhm,
when I say external from the environment that you're in, I'm speaking from the perspective of a Black woman
yeah,
being the only one, a lot of the only one of a few. And I said to you earlier, but I think it was when we were off before we
yeah,
got
yeah,
on stage, that I grew up an only girl, like, around
yeah.
boys. And so for the first maybe decade of my career, it was nothing to me to be the only woman. It didn't bother me. I it didn't
But
change
to
how I
this
showed
day
up. Mhm.
To this day, I ask people why that bothers you. Like, because here's the thing, and here's the way I look at it, and you can tell me I'm full of shit.
I
I
probably
won't
will.
take no offense to it, but I have a problem when people are followers and are like, I need someone to do this before me before I feel comfortable doing it.
So it's not that, Derek. It's not that. It's not that
But I've
element.
seen that. I've seen that.
Okay. For
That's
me,
what
it's
I'm saying.
not that. It's
I'm
not
not saying
that.
that's you, but I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
saying, like, I've seen that when it's like, oh, well, there's so few of us. I can't speak on this, or I can't work in this career field, or I can't do this because
Ah,
it's male dominated or it's whatever.
interesting. I don't
Like I
encounter that
always
a lot among the people that I meet.
like right and like and then people are like, oh, well, I need someone that looks like me in order for me to believe I can break into this career field.
Now, I
Like
will
if I
say,
tell you you can do it, you can do it. Like I will literally out there like 90%. Actually, I won't say 90%. I'd probably say about 80% of the workforce that I know is like, if you got the brain power and the capability to go forth and conquer, go forth and conquer. Like nothing holds you back but you.
so
And
do you
so I have that issue when people like restrict themselves because they
yeah.
listen to the wrong people.
Yeah, I do you find that that tends to be in the younger generation?
No, I think I tend to be in the older generation,
Yeah, that's
mine and beyond.
interesting. I haven't had that experience.
The younger generation I have seen, um, like Gen Z,
Mhm.
say things like, and we see it to this day in media and mass media and everything else like that. And I've had these conversations where they're like, "Oh, I finally have someone like," and just for example, because I know it was a huge thing on social media. Little Mermaid, let's just put it out there. Little Mermaid came out, the live action. You
Yeah,
had a
yeah.
black female. They
Yeah.
dyed her hair red. Whatever was. Well, it wasn't really dyed. I don't know. Whatever. I didn't.
I never saw it
I'm not a fan
actually.
of live action Disney movies. I think I'm just not a fan. But people are like, "Oh, my daughter watched this and she finally saw a Disney princess that looked like her." And I'm just like, when I look at things like that, I'm like, why can't you be the first? Like, why do you need someone that represents you? Because media for eons has never represented the minority. They've gone what's best for their pocketbook, which is let's go by stereotype.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I haven't had that experience among the people that I have encountered, like being
I'm so
deterred
proud of it.
by being the only one. But what I'm trying to say is that when you fight that fight
Yes,
of being the only one, right? You've done all
and
the
you earn
things,
it.
you get yes, and you get there, and then you're treated like you don't belong there. Okay. So
That
what
would be
happens?
problematic to me.
Yeah. So what
I would
happens?
want to smack the taste out of someone's mouth for that.
Right. So what happens, unfortunately, Derek, and like I said, it happened to me. It took a long time for it to. I call it chinks in my armor.
Yes.
So I had this very good armor of self awareness, self esteem, self confidence. Right. A very self
You earned it.
full. Right. And I also growing up in the Bahamas where everyone's black, I never discrimination and racism was like the last thing in my mind. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, for
oh,
sure.
that's not why this, and so, but over the years, the little microaggressions are real.
Yeah.
They are real. And I say, for me, they put chinks in my armor until one
Yeah.
day I started to feel like an imposter. Okay. And I remember the moment, and it's crazy, Derek. I remember sitting at my desk one day and
Mhm.
thinking, what is going on? Like, what is this? Why do I feel this way? And I had to rehearse to myself, wait a minute, you've got an MBA. You did your CISP. You have
That's
electrical engineering. I had to remind myself that all of the things that I've accomplished, like this is what's happening in an environment that I'm in. And
see,
that's what
that's
I mean, it can come from the
that's
outside as well.
that's a different viewpoint of what I have seen from people that talk about imposter syndrome, myself included,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Because, like, when I look at it, it is usually when your internal self starts comparing yourself
That
to
happens
exterior
too.
factors,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
It's like, let's just say I've only been hacking for or coding or whatever for like 2 days.
Yeah.
But you see someone like a Dave Kennedy or an Alyssa
Yes.
Miller
Yeah.
you know,
The people you revere and you respect and
everybody, and you're
admire.
like, "Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, I'll never be like them. I can
Yeah,
never
yeah,
stack up.
yeah.
I don't belong here." Um, and so you see that and you're like, "I'm just gonna walk away." But
Mhm.
but now, like, the way you explain it, that is definitely a different viewpoint on it, because I've even talked to friends that
Mhm.
are like, "Why am I even doing this if people are just gonna sit there and say they're not gonna listen to me. They don't care
And
about what I
that's what
say."
it is right there.
They
So just
like
different language, but the feeling, right?
yeah,
The how
yeah,
you're made to feel. And so I like the belonging. It's like you
mhm,
don't feel like you belong. And
yes,
so
yes,
you could say then you're an imposter, right? So I
and
think people
so
feel it in different ways. Mhm.
yeah, definitely, and so but that's why I preach and well, I say preach, but that's why I talk about a lot is there's a lot of talk. People, it's a common phrase, build the table or seat at the table or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, I know.
I tell people all the time, I'm like, look, if you want to look at it as a form of tables, build your own fucking table. Don't I like legitimately
But I'll tell
it
you though,
like build
Derek,
your
even
own
building your
and
own
belong.
table as a
Be-
marginalized person will burn you out. I
Oh,
mean,
it yeah, yeah.
because you're
I
still fighting, and they call it racial battle fatigue. And it's not perceptible. I don't know how to explain
yeah,
this, and I think the people of color will get it. It's not perceptible. It's just a something that it's invisible that's there. And we keep resilience, right? So, like you said, yeah,
oh,
I don't
resilience,
see
huge.
anybody like me there, but I want to be that. That's how come there's always a first, right? Like the
Someone
first
gotta be the
black
first.
this or the first Latinx that or you know what I mean? So there's always gonna be that those people who don't let that lack of representation stop them. And I think there's
Yeah.
lots of us. You know what I mean?
Well, at this point in time,
Mhm.
I think there's very few firsts left, at least from what I've seen, just because people keep bringing up the first. We've had hell, the CEO of the company I work for is Ty Lee, absolutely amazing. Been running SHI for decades, absolutely amazing. And so, like, when I look at the first things, we have, black
We've
female
come a long
CEOs,
way for
we
that,
have
yes.
black female doing this. So, like, I think at this point, if people are like, I need to be the first, I'm like, you haven't done your research because it exists.
No, I don't no, I'm not saying that at all.
Oh, no, no, I'm not
Yeah.
saying you are. I'm
Okay.
saying, like, at
Mhm.
this point, if people have that in their mind,
Yeah.
that just
S
means you have not looked for what you're trying to find
And
because
you know
it
what,
exists.
Derek? I'm gonna tell you something from a I said to you, I've got a few degrees, I've been
Uh-huh.
working in the field, so I have a decent idea of what it means to research.
I think you have more than an idea, but sure.
But the other day, I attend a lot of webinars on and I do a lot of things, not necessarily around very technical stuff. My heart has become this well-being for techies. Like, yes.
Right there with you, girl, right there with
Yes,
you. We
you
gonna talk
know,
after because
yes,
we gotta
that is
keep
my
going.
heart. So I attend a lot of webinars about things like that. Also, I attend a lot of webinars for people trying to get in, like exposing people to
Yes,
representation and faces. And I gotta be honest. I've been on some stuff, Derek, and I'm like, I still don't see me. Now
I
that
can
doesn't
see that.
stop me from going,
No,
but it's
no,
like,
and
where
everybody's
are?
different.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying. And D Hayes put up, and I'm gonna put this out there. You know the racial history of I don't know what TR is, but I'm gonna put it when it says easy to build your own table. No, it's not easy to build your own table. It's absolutely not.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna get into the racial history and go into the whole background of everything. One, because I don't have the sources in front of me, so I'm not gonna speak on something without being able to cite sources.
Mhm.
But what I will say is building your own table is not easy. I can say go build your own table. It doesn't mean it's easy. That's just like when people sit there and say, well, if you can't break into cybersecurity, be an entrepreneur and start your own cybersecurity
Oh my
company.
god, that's like the worst
No,
advice.
no, that's not
I
easy.
hate that people have done that. They're like, "Oh," and I shouldn't say I hate. With the pandemic, the way things happened, and Derek, I don't know if you trace this sort of trend, there was a lot of opportunity
Oh yeah.
for people to break in. I'm also cutting out language of break in. I don't like that language anymore. But to get into the field,
Yep.
right? They did all the things and the opportunities were, I won't say easier, but more accessible. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother conversation you and I can have. I call it microwave IT and blah, blah, blah. And this is where we are today because of that.
Hmm.
But eventually, the opportunities started to dwindle.
Yeah.
Right? And what I've
Absolutely.
also noticed is, and I haven't done a lot of research on this, but I do a micro observation, I like to call it that, right? I observe my sphere.
Right.
There
What
were
you
a
can
lot of
see, you see. Yeah.
yes, and no, and typically that means there's a bigger thing happening,
Yeah.
right? So what I did observe was a lot of people who had gotten in, I'm not saying they didn't do all the things, but in the accessible opportunities are getting laid off now, right? And the tone when that happens is start your own business. And I'm just
Hate that.
like, y'all, that ain't necessarily an
I
easier.
I hate that. So I'm gonna agree with you there. I'm a and that but first I gotta put this up because about that Rollet said, "Find another table," I'd say.
Okay,
Absolutely right.
that can
But
happen
that
too.
goes the reason I put that up is because it goes hand in hand with one of the other topics that comes up when you talk about burnout, mental health,
Mhm.
breaking in or getting in, imposter syndrome, all this other stuff goes hand in hand. A lot of people complain about the companies that they're like, oh, they're
Yeah.
biased, they're whatever, right? Put any term you want on it that means the company is doing a shit job at being a company and having a good, raising people up.
Mhm.
I tell them you can complain about them, but go find one that's actually going to support you. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's damn hard.
All of it
But
is challenging.
the whole career field's hard. So
Yeah,
guess what?
it is.
Pick your hard. I'd rather work for a company that's going to allow me to do my content, allow me to make my videos, do what I do, and
That's
still
good.
work for them full time and put that out. But if a company is going to sit there, and I've actually left companies that were like, "Oh, well, you're on social media, you got to do X, Y, and
Mhm.
Z,"
Yeah, some
or and I'm
companies are
like,
not good with that. Yeah. You brought up
"Deuces,
a good
I'm out."
point though, Derek, that is something that we can attach to or correlate to the burnout, the imposter syndrome or whatever,
Mhm.
is knowing what you want. Remember I
Yep.
said, what do you enjoy?
What's your why?
It really goes back to that, right? So for you, you had an experience where you're like, this company wants to muzzle me and I'm not going to be muzzled. And so you found a
Yeah.
company where you're not muzzled. It's important, I think, not I think, I know it is. It's important for us to know what's important to us,
Mhm.
right? And yes, it's hard to transition from one company to the next. And in this field, I think it's important to be adaptable and
Mhm.
flexible and transitional, right? So not always stay in the same
Yes.
thing for the whole 30, however many years you're going to be in there. That all takes work,
Yeah.
like you said, and a lot of people do want the microwave, but at the same time they don't really know what they want, and I think it's so important to know what you want, know what
Yes.
brings you joy, and experiment.
And for some people, this industry doesn't bring them joy. They do
Yeah,
it for the money.
they
But again,
do.
at a point in time, let's look at it this way, salaries have decreased
Yes,
in
they
this
have.
industry. Like,
They
so to
have.
transition jobs now, you're probably gonna take a pay cut
Yeah,
unless you can get a
I've been noticing
promotion,
that.
which
Yeah.
basically salary-wise works out in a lateral move. It's not
Yeah,
really,
yeah, yeah.
what you're looking for. So, for some people, this industry just isn't for them. And if you're doing it for the money, I respect that. You do you, boo boo. But I don't do things for money because then you're never happy. When is enough enough?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I never had it in my head that I was doing any of it for the money. But I will say that over the years, because I just happened into tech, IT. I went to school for electrical engineering.
Hey, I've looked at your LinkedIn and kind of looked you up, Dawn. I ain't gonna lie, and you're damn good at what you do. Um, if I had the ability to hire you, I'd probably try to suck you up, but I ain't got that ain't my career field, so I work in a different sector of
Well, just remember me
cybersecurity.
when you meet somebody else. But, I don't think I ever did it for the money, but the money was good enough, you know what I mean? But I remember times, Derek, when I was doing that production support job and I couldn't even take vacation.
I hate that.
And that
I
was when
absolutely hate that.
I was like, it can't be about the money. It cannot.
No.
It doesn't if you can't enjoy your life with all of that money, then what's the point?
So,
To me.
I I was in the Army, well, military, 'cause I switched branches, for
Mhm.
13 years. I didn't get any time off. Even when I took leave, I wasn't off. I was
Yeah.
taking phone calls, I was still working.
Yeah,
If a
yeah.
soldier needed something, like, time off did not exist. When I retired in 2017, it was the same way.
Mm.
I even in my civilian jobs, if I
Yeah.
took time off, I was still working. My phone was always on,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
always connected. That's honestly, I think as much as I am like, when it comes to working in an office, I'm horrible at it because I find reasons to, like, I will literally sit there and talk to someone for 2 hours after going to answer a ticket.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, offices are like that to me too.
I
Like,
was
you
so
chat with
bad
your
working in an
coworkers.
office. So, like, working from home was fantastic for
Oh,
me.
the propensity to overwork from home is, like, for
But
me, really
but
high.
even but here's the problem.
Uh-huh.
Whether you were in an office or working from home these days, you got a smartphone now.
Oh, I
Because
know,
you
I
probably
know.
got Slack or Teams or something on there, and email, and text
Well.
messaging, and so, I will not lie, since I retired in 2017,
Mhm.
for 3 years, I did not turn off notifications. I was always available. I would answer calls at
Ooh,
3 o'clock in the morning.
what?
For 3 years, time off did not exist. Even if I had time off, I wasn't taking time off because I
Yeah, you
always
were
read
off, but you weren't really
messages.
off.
I
Yeah,
always did whatever.
yeah.
In 2020, at the end of 2020, well, middle to end, I ended up going on vacation with my family to Tennessee. I turned off everything. It
How
was
did
the
it
first
feel?
time in my military and civilian career that I legitimately killed every notification, every
Mhm.
way to contact me. And if I saw a phone call or a text from work, I ignored it. I would read it
Good for
and be like, "Yeah, Imma
you.
leave you on red,
Right.
but I ain't gonna
It's gonna
respond."
hold until I get back.
And so I ended up, it was the most clear I've ever been in my
Mm,
life. And so it was at that point because I was getting burnt out. I was
yeah,
getting
yeah.
like, my
You
mental
had
health
to have
was
been.
going spiraling.
Yeah.
And so after that, I realized I need time. And so
Mhm.
now I don't work for companies that don't have unlimited PTO
Yeah. And it's the
because
culture, it is the culture.
I
Yeah.
encourage my people and I tell them take 1 week off a quarter. Every
I
quarter,
love the
take a
idea of
week
unlimited
off, and you
PTO.
better not sign on to Teams or anything. Like, literally,
Good.
you better be
That's
out.
awesome. Yeah.
Don't ever sign in. And you're like, "Well, why?" I'm like, "Because you need your time. If
Mhm.
you got a family, you
Oh,
damn well need
you
to spend
know
time with
your
your
time.
family.
Yeah,
And if you
exactly.
don't have a family, you need your you time.
That
Like, you
is
need
so
to be able
good.
to get away, go
Yes.
meditate, go hiking, go I don't care if you sit in your house and play video games for a week.
It's
I really
just a
don't care what you do.
detach. Yeah, yeah.
Get
No,
away."
yeah.
Because our life is so surrounded by technology. This is what burns us out. This
Mhm.
is what destroys our mental health. And honestly, it's a big part of imposter syndrome because you're constantly scrolling, looking at
Yes,
news and
the
doing things.
comparison,
Like
the
my
yeah,
boss was on at 10
yeah.
o'clock at night. I
Yeah.
need to be on and working. No, the fuck you don't.
I know, and I hate that I don't like that managers some managers, right, do that.
Mhm.
They set this expectation, like, you're supposed to do the way they do. I remember I had a manager one time, can't remember, I think they had, like, worked through their vacation or canceled their vacation or something, and they
Yeah.
came on the call, "Oh, I did blah, blah, blah," and I'm sitting there like, "That was your choice."
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't tell you to do that, and I hope you don't expect us to do it. Now, of course,
Right.
by this time, I'm pretty tenured, so I wasn't doing it, and I'd already done the
Right.
overwork
It's like,
thing.
you know what, homie, you have that. I'm out.
Exactly. So I have this policy after I had done the production support job and had the phone and on call. I don't do on call jobs anymore. I don't. That time is up for
Yep.
me. I feel like I paid my dues, right? If that was my due to pay. And I refuse to put the company apps on my personal phone. If they need to be in touch with me, they should give me a phone. And
So
that was my stance. And
I
it
agree.
worked for what I was
N-
doing, right? For my job.
yeah.
It wasn't necessary for me to be always on. So that those are choices I've made to protect
Yeah.
myself. Yeah.
But one of the things that I think people need to understand, because there is still this misconception that you can break into cybersecurity and make 100 and some $1,000s a year. Yeah, if you live in New York or California, where the annual
You're right,
salary
it's
for
not
like
there
a
anymore.
CISO is $550,000
Yeah.
a year.
Yeah, it's not there
Yeah,
anymore.
maybe, maybe.
The
But
salaries have gone down. They really have. That was
yeah,
like 2020, 2021.
junior salaries in cybersecurity are like 60 to eighty
They
thousand
are
dollars.
low. They're like what I was making when like not mid into my career, but the first quarter of my career, which would have been early 2000s. Like
Mine,
there.
my first job out of the army, I was making $62,000 a year.
I don't get it. Why hasn't it should be different, but it's gone down like you're saying. It's changed.
So you need to understand that this isn't a career field
Yeah,
that it,
not anymore.
now it is one thing. And this is why I always tell people break in at help desk, work that minimum wage, like piece of
Mhm.
shit job, um, so that you can build yourself up. Um, but at that point, you have that foundational knowledge. So it's easier to get into that like higher tier junior level role. So they're saying 60 to 80, you can get in at that 80,
Mhm.
like because you have
Mm.
that
Mhm.
foundational knowledge.
Gotcha.
Um, it's crazy that like people think they could just break in at like I've never done an IT job, I've never done
That
a
was the social
cybersecurity job in my
media, the
life.
microwave IT. I told
Like,
you I call it microwave
yeah,
IT.
yeah,
It's
utterly
like,
ridiculous.
"Oh, do the search to get this job," and it's like and I think what I really disliked about that because again, I have my little micro observation, I observe what's
Yeah.
going on. People got in and they were like, "Oh my god, I didn't know it would be like this." They had this fairy tale in their mind, and I'm just like, "Who lied to you?"
All the boot camp instructors in companies.
Exactly. Now, if you had talked to the people who do this job, we would have given you the whole truth and nothing but the truth. At least I do, because I feel like you should make an informed decision, right? I
Yeah.
think the work we do requires information, and then
Yes.
decisions are for information. So let's start with your personal career, making an informed decision based off enough information to, decide. And then so that when you get in, you don't have this, oh my God, what have I done? You know what I mean? That type of thing. And then they're disillusioned. And I think that's what hurts my heart the most, that disillusion, and then they're like, "Oh, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm going to do something else." And I'm like, "But you did so much." And so that
So
whole cycle to me is disappointing.
so uh, which D brings up a good point.
Uh-huh. What did D say?
What could be considered as foundational is junior cyber roles really junior?
What's your opinion on that, Derek?
I have
Based
mixed
on
feelings.
my
I
own
have mixed feelings.
history, I don't think that exists.
So I can say junior cyber roles, you don't have to have enterprise IT experience, but you better be doing home labs and understand exactly what foundational knowledge is. Are they junior in the effect of you can get that job right out of college? Some colleges, if you can speak to what
It
you're being
depends
hired
on what the
for.
job is hiring for. Yeah.
Junior
Yeah.
analyst, if you like, let's say, so two of the junior roles I always recommend junior analyst and junior GRC, getting into
Mm,
something governance, risk, and compliance.
mhm.
Why GRC? Because that's more education based as far as understanding regulation, policy,
Yeah, so more
procedure,
knowledge.
things
Uh,
like that.
Yeah,
Um,
versus hard skill, technical
correct.
stuff. Mhm.
Junior analysts, if you can prove you're able to understand logs and correlating data, a lot of MSSPs will hire a junior
Mm,
analyst with little to
I can
no
see that.
enterprise experience.
Mhm.
But getting to any company, right? Not an MSSP, any company as a junior in cybersecurity, non-existent if you have no experience in IT.
I think
Does not exist.
unless the company has, and I recommend this to a lot of people, but these are few and far between, right? Those like rotational programs where they
Yeah.
are literally looking for someone with no experience. They
Mhm.
only wanna know you went to school or whatever it is. Those I love
But they're still
those.
looking for that degree or that
That is true. A lot of
certification.
times it's the degree, yes. But they have
And
those
so
apprenticeships now.
correct. Well,
Those are
and that's
nice, but
why
again,
I
few
would
and far
love to
between.
I would love to see cybersecurity either become more of a trade or
Mm,
unionized. One of the
real
two.
that'd be interesting.
And the only reason I say that is because yes, you pay union dues, right? So if it became unionized, you pay union dues, but then at least you know what your salaries are. You can fight for higher
Yeah.
contracts, higher pay, things
Maybe
like
we'll
that.
actually have the same job titles instead of the
And you have
craziness.
apprenticeships. Like
Yeah.
like a lot of your unions, if you look at the electricians union
Mhm.
and carpenters and things like that, they have apprenticeships. You could literally get paid to go apprentice to somebody, but it's a low salary, right?
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
gonna be 6 figures a year, but at least you're learning on the job.
Yeah, exactly, and a lot of times those type of things turn into full-time roles, you
And
know?
they turn into
So,
like 6-figure jobs. You're looking at
yeah.
a 100K plus
Yeah,
to
no, yeah, I've
be and you're 2
those
years
management
in.
programs are like that, like, I tell people check out those big, accounting firms for that type of
Mhm,
stuff, EY,
mhm,
PwC.
yep,
Again, they're few and far between, there are not many openings, but if you could get one of those,
yep,
typically they lead to that six-figure.
absolutely,
That's the next step,
absolutely.
and I wish I had known about those when I started my career. I was like, "Oh, I woulda
I
loved
actually
this."
funny enough, I burned myself on my first job out of the Army.
Yeah?
Yeah, I applied to I forget what company it was, but they were basically the auditor for the company my dad was working for. My dad does GRC. I helped him get into GRC because I was studying cybersecurity at the time. So, I had told them I wanted, like, 120 a year.
Mhm.
Instead of them coming back with a counter offer of like 80, which I would have accepted on the dime
Mhm.
because I just needed a job. I was retiring and was like, I deserve this much. I've got 4 certifications, a degree. Actually, I had way more than four. I had more letters after my name than the
Mhm.
freaking alphabet when I retired. But like I was like, I have all this. I deserve 120 grand a year. And they legitimately turned me down because of the salary I
Really?
asked
They didn't
for.
even negotiate?
Never even got a
That's
counter offer.
interesting.
They told my dad this. Like, the guy went and, like, was auditing my dad, like, where my dad worked and was like, "Hey, we said no on your son because of this reason." My dad called me and was like, "Homie, you need to quit asking for too much money." And I'm like, "Homie, because you're afraid to ask doesn't mean I'm afraid to ask. I'm going in
You
all
were
in,
like
buddy."
you were like you were willing to take that chance. I forget what they call that, like your no whatever in negotiation. You
I
were
just
like,
don't
"This is my minimum and that's it. I'm willing to leave the table."
I got a
Right?
wife and 5 kids. I am not willing to say
Yeah,
yes
yeah.
or less.
You're
Like,
like,
it's
"I'll
just
just keep
not gonna
looking. I'm
happen.
willing to leave this table. It's not for me. This is my minimum." But I can't
Yep.
believe they didn't even negotiate. Like, come back
I
and
wish
say,
they would've. I would've said yes because the
"Yeah.
only other job I got literally came back at, like, 62 grand a year. So
Oh,
that 80K I would have taken in a heartbeat. I'd have
yeah.
been like, "Yes, please, let's
That's
go."
so interesting." Now that's interesting because it goes against the people that say you should ask for what you want, right?
So
Very
I'm the type
interesting.
of person nowadays now, right? So a lot of companies are putting their salary ranges
Yes, I
on
love that. Even though the
so
range
do
is
I.
like $100,000.
Right? Well, no, the worst is Netflix, but I let's not go there. Like, if you haven't looked at a Netflix job for cybersecurity, please go do it. Their pay range, literally, when they list it, is from like 100,000 to like almost 900,000. Like, their ranges are ridiculous.
That doesn't make any sense.
There's good reason. Go look at it. It explains it all in there. It has to do with stock
Okay.
options and if you get stocks from the
Oh, and then
company. It's all
location
yeah.
and all that stuff like
Like,
that, but
yeah, there's
still.
There's a
That's a
lot that
huge
goes into it,
range.
but
Yeah.
your base salary legitimately, if you're like, I want everything in stocks, could be 100K a year.
Mhm, mhm.
If you're like, pay me 100K, the rest of what you think I'm
Yeah.
worth, go into stocks.
Mhm.
Me, I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't pay my bills off of
Need the
stocks.
cash.
I need that money. Right?
Right, right.
Like, to me, I need my green.
Oh. And look,
I
and
want my
the way things
I
are going with the market, you never know what's gonna happen with that. So yeah,
yeah,
take the
who
cash
knows?
if you
I look,
can.
I don't even care. Well, that's my problem. So on the note of staying with companies for longevity, one,
Mhm.
I say people don't leave companies because of the company, they leave it because of the people.
Mhm.
Nobody leaves the company anymore because the company, is because of the people. And it's, are you going to pay my salary? Right? Are you going to give me raises? And I'm not talking the bullshit raises that companies give them. We'll give you 3 to 5%. When's the last time inflation has been 3 to 5%? Please,
That is
somebody
one of
tell
the
me.
big complaints of a lot of people. That's the
Like,
raises are not keeping up with inflation, and that's
like
across
if
the
you,
globe.
oh, definitely. It's like, and if
Yeah.
like if you're going to give me a raise, that better be 10 to 15.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I better be getting another 10 to 15% out of this,
Mhm.
because that's
Yeah.
how we keeping up with inflation. And so, like, companies that aren't willing to give real raises, people will leave. Why? Because you can do a lateral and or a promotional move after being with a company for a year or two to another company and get paid 20, 30, 40 grand more
Yeah,
a year.
automatically you will. Yeah, most likely. Yeah.
So, and with, because pensions are out the window,
Yeah,
nobody pays
they've been
pensions
gone. Oh
anymore.
my god, it's
So
ridiculous.
why be loyal to a company if you're
Yeah.
not going to pay me when I retire? Because you ain't the one paying me. It's my 401k, which means I
Yeah,
could literally
yeah,
go leave another job, roll that 401k into another
yeah. Mhm.
401k, and we'd be good to
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
So if people want, if companies want brand loyalty and company loyalty, then prove it to your people. Get rid of your 3 to 5% raises. Give your people raises. If you feel someone deserves a merit raise, give them a merit raise based on merit.
So
Don't give
Derek,
them
do you think the companies actually want that? I've asked this
hell
question
no, they don't.
recently.
Every company just wants to make money. And look, I don't blame them. And we can get into another conversation
We
off
could.
air, and we're going to, just because of the some of the stuff I
Mm.
would love to get into. But um, if I can pay someone less and they're going to stay, or I can hire someone for
They're
less
gonna do
because
it.
you're too scared to ask for money,
Yeah,
I'm going to do it.
yeah. Yeah,
I'm absolutely going to do it
yeah.
because as a company, my job is to make money, is to make revenue. And if I'm the owner of that company, all that ARR, all the revenue, all the margin is in my pocket. And then I decide what to do with that money. If I want to give myself a $10 million
Yeah, yeah,
bonus,
right,
then
or
I'm
give
going
it
to
to the
do it.
people, yeah. So, that's a really I've been thinking about that recently because a lot of companies say, right, that they have these I was looking at a company's stuff today, and I was reading their, like, mission or whatever, and I'm like,
Mhm.
"This is all lies."
Well, all of them are lies. What are you talking about?
And then I think, well, I guess they aspire to these things, right? But I heard, but I think there are companies out there. You know, I don't know that they are the majority, but I think there are companies out there that, to some aspect, do better, right? But as you said, and I said this to a younger person recently, and they were like, "Oh, whatever." It's like, at the end, if if a company has shareholders, they have to make revenue. That's what's
Publicly traded
driving.
companies are the
If you're
worst.
not if you are not a nonprofit, even government, as we've seen now, right? It's about the dollar. Like, you maximize that money, you know? And so that's driving everything.
Well, the
Underneath,
dollar,
that's the driven. Yeah.
so I will say this. The dollar will always drive everything. You can call it the dollar, the yen, whatever currency you want to put on it.
Yeah,
I don't care
yeah.
where you're from. That
Mhm.
will drive business. Why? Because as a society, we got away from barter and trade. We got away
Yeah,
from
yeah,
do
exactly.
good for good's sake. We got away
Yep.
from, whatever. Like,
Mhm.
that's out the window now. Everything in our society is driven by money. So
Yeah.
you're going to do what's going to bring me the most money. And
Mhm.
so, and this goes back to originally what I was saying when we were talking about, do I belong? Do I have, is
Mhm.
someone there like me? Things like that. Just like the media is only going to show you what's going to bring in money. What's gonna
Yeah.
bring in money is division, it's stereotypes,
That's an
it's
excellent point.
all this other stuff. So showing representation and things like that, you're not gonna see that on mainstream media, you're not gonna see that on TV because guess what? That's not what brings them money. What
And
brings them money
so
is violence, sex,
oh, I know,
comedy.
and fair.
It's all this stuff that
Conflict.
people that have, like, literally
Yeah.
destroyed society as a whole.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. So you
like
were I know we're almost ending, but you brought up a really good point for me to segue into
mhm.
why that's why I started my podcast. We even talked about that. I have a podcast
Oh,
and
shit, yeah, I forgot to bring that up.
oh,
My
no problem. But it
apologies.
was a really if you made me think about it as we were talking because it isn't mainstream. And so I feel like my job with my podcast is to be that representation. And so on my podcast, I expose or share the stories of people just like me
Yeah,
in our field, right?
yeah.
So that others know if they are wondering, that I can do that. I can be that. I mean, that's why we have role models, you know? So yeah, it's not mainstream, you're right. But I think I can
But
do my part. There's others. I appreciate you, doing your part. That's what you're doing with this. Showing all the different aspects and the diversity and the variety of our field,
because we
by
all
yeah.
belong.
Yes.
You may not fit into a certain company. And
Yes.
honestly, the way I look at things is if you can bring that much knowledge, intelligence, growth, personality, everything to a company, and they're not willing to accept you, it's their loss.
It is their loss.
It's not
Agreed. Totally
yours.
agree.
And I
Mhm.
think on an individual level, we take that to heart and we're like, oh, well, I didn't get hired because of X, Y, and Z. Look, I get it. Maybe not. You're right. Maybe someone was a piece of shit. Completely
Yeah.
understand. At the end of the day, it's their loss because now you can bring what you're capable of to another company.
Yeah.
Let that other company pay you what you're worth and allow you to excel and succeed and do better. Because then only from there the sky's the limit
Mhm.
and beyond. And so I think too many times we put these limits on ourselves because we look at companies and we're like, "Oh, they only looked at me this way and I didn't get hired," or "They treated me poorly
Yeah.
because X, Y, and Z." And I think we do that a lot as individuals. Um, and it's like, "Look, I get that. I understand it, and I'm not blaming you." What I
It's
am saying is go out there and work for someone that deserves you.
yeah. It's an
Hold your
active it's an
know your worth.
active I still think it's a fight, right?
Oh,
So,
for sure. It's always
you
gonna be
know
a
what I
fight.
mean? It's like
Everything we do
you
in
have to
life.
actively oppose that story, that narrative, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so
But but
that
but
yeah.
and before we sign off, I will say this, and I've
Mhm.
said it on my short form content all the time. Life is a fight. You're gonna get your teeth kicked in, you're
Really,
gonna get knocked down, you're gonna fail, you're gonna make mistakes, all this other
oh
stuff.
my god, it is.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's not easy. Life is
Mhm.
never
No,
gonna be
it's not,
easy.
it's not.
So
Mhm.
reg so you have 2 options in life. You blame everybody else and you stay down and you say, "Oh,
Mhm.
woe is me," or you get your ass back up, you fight for it, and you go where where you know you can
Yes.
get your worth out of it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
on you. Everything's a personal choice.
It really is, and I think one of the big aspects that I actually love that technology has given to us, Derek, is these communities,
Oh,
right?
yeah, for sure.
We can find a Derek, we can find a Dawn, we can find a whatever online, and you
Yeah.
can get that sense of belonging. You get the energy to fight the fight and do the life thing, right?
Yes.
So that's what I love. When I look at technology, it's the good and bad of it.
I have a
I love that.
love-hate relationship with technology and the
Yes,
internet and everything else.
exactly.
And we'll talk
Yep.
about that. I want you to stay online after the show, but
Okay.
Dawn, before we cut out, any final words for those trying to break into the industry, wanting to make a name for themselves, anything like that? If you can give
Wow.
final words to anybody, what would it be?
It'll just be repeated what I've already said, do it for find some joy, find some love, find that thing that drives you, right? Because you're gonna have to keep coming back to that. I think you did say it, Derek, at one point, your why.
Mhm.
And whatever that is, and it's yours. And just be very okay with um, cultivating your own path. Doesn't have to look like anybody else's. It's yours. And you may feel out of place or you may make a wrong turn, but you always have the ability to come back.
Yes.
And there's so many things you can do to do that. You can talk to Derek, you can talk to me, and you can get back on track. Access the community that's available there for you. And I think that's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I will say this before we cut off. Look, the community is open. Cyber Warrior Studios, the Cyber Warrior, myself, Derek Scheller. I have Discord channel down in the description on YouTube and LinkedIn, and I think Facebook. Other mediums don't share it. Dawn is the founder of Courageous,
Yes.
Daring, Wonderful You. Please check it out. Connect with her on LinkedIn. Her LinkedIn and Instagram is down below as well. So feel free to connect with her. Look, it's all about growth mindset. It's all about becoming better. And it's all about understanding that we do burn out. We all have mental health shit we deal with. We all have
Yeah.
imposter syndrome. Everybody who has been in this industry, unless you're got into it at the 80s and know better than everybody
You're
else,
still
which
working on the mainframe or
like,
something.
right, like your password is God. Like, that unless you're one of them people, everybody suffers from imposter syndrome. Don't be afraid to speak out, talk to somebody, get
Yes.
the help
Yeah.
you need. About that wallet, said it earlier. I did not put it on screen, but do not be afraid to go talk to a therapist, a psychologist, somebody like that.
Absolutely.
If you need help, go get the help you need. We don't quit around here. We're all warriors. We're
I
all
love it.
family. And if you need to help out, if you need help, reach out. We got you. Saying that, I love you all. You're all my warriors. You're all my family. Take care, and I'll talk to you in the
Good
next one.
night.